Thanks for staying with us on the conversation. Moving on now to developments in Nigeria, where the federal government has recently approved a decision to discontinue budgetary allocations to various professional bodies and councils starting from December 31, 2026. This new directive was communicated through a letter sent from the Budget Office of the Federation to the Registrar of the Nigerian Council of Food Science and Technology, an agency operating under the Federal Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation.
Now, the letter signed by the Director General Akabueze bears the title Discontinuation of Funding of Professional Bodies and Councils from 2024 Budget, in line with the decision of the Presidential Committee on Salaries. According to the letter, the affected institutions, which include at least 25 professional bodies and councils under several ministries, will now be considered as self-funded organizations. Now, joining us for this discussion, we have Oladipo Olalekan Efficient, a political analyst, joins us live from Nigeria's commercial capital, Lagos. One welcome to you, Efficient, and thanks for joining us on the conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. It's indeed a privilege to be on your show this beautiful evening.
Now, Efficient, could you help us make sense of the rationale behind the federal government's decision to discontinue budgetary allocations to professional bodies and councils starting from December 31st, 2026?
Well, thank you so much. I think the last time I was on your show, we discussed an issue of removing fuel subsidy. We all agree that it is important for us to remove subsidy because we need to save or look for every avenue we have. If you look at the budget, look at the amount of debt Nigeria loan we are servicing, infrastructure deficit. So the government needs all the money they can lay their hands on. And looking at the rate, the current debt rate, it will be like a go on a suicide mission for this incoming administration to see what to say. They want to go and borrow another money. Even if I thought they're going to borrow, it must not be at the magnitude of what we witnessed in the last administration under President Muhammadu Buhari. So, which means that the administration needs to look inward. A report we saw in news that came later today. I don't know how true is it that in 1 week we saved over 400 billion out of subsidy, which is a good one. So this government trying to say that all the professional bodies need to be self-funding. I think it's a right step in the right direction. If you look at it, even Institute of Chartered Accountants, they said that the last time they collect, I think since 1990, they've been funding themselves. And even when you try to look at the budget of ICANN and even Chartered Institute of Bankers and so on, these two bodies, you discover that these are agencies that have the capacity to
Efficient.
No, I believe Efficient is trying to say these agencies, they have the capacity and the power to fund the operations. And they're very professional. And, if you want to be a member, they rely on levies and all of that. So,
but I still feel it might be hard for some of them. I mean, he mentioned some accounting. I know some of them are in the health professional department also. We're still having situations where in the medical field, or we have a lot of people complaining about not being paid salaries. So I really do not know how they will be able to...
Exactly, how they will be able to pay that on top of
all of that. So it's really going to be a hard one. Yes, it's going to save government money, but it means a whole lot of preparation for these professional bodies. Will they be able to fund themselves? How will it impact the functionality of the body as a whole?
But I guess they've given them enough time, so they will decide that now, and you should also try to pay your professional fees. But we have Efficient back.
Efficient. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you now. I think it's the network that's trying to so what I'm trying to say in the sense that these professional bodies, they are old enough to take care of themselves. They are professional members that feature across Nigeria and Africa as a whole. So it's just like for them to be receiving grants from the government, just like a 30-year-old or let's say 40-year-old child still depending on their parent for basic things in terms of feeding, shelter.
So why did we leave it this late? If it's so obvious that
that
the government shouldn't be paying this, why is it coming so late?
You look at it, have we seen an auditor report that actually said what they use this money for? I know, I have friends who are chartered accountants, I have friends who are members of the Institute of Chartered Bankers, I have members who are members of some of these professional bodies. They pay their dues, they pay for their exams, and you look at even occasionally the seminars, the trainings, these professional bodies, partake. Members subscribe, they pay exorbitant fees. So the idea you want to ask what are they actually using this budget, the money government is being given them, what are they using it for? I think it's for me it's just like another wastage on its own. These professional bodies are actually looking on, and this another thing is this: it's going to help these professional bodies to wake up from their slumber. We will actually see them using their techniques to actually, there's a lot of these professional bodies, some Nigerians don't even know them, you don't even know they exist. It is now that the government is trying to, remove, halt their funding. That's okay, so a body like this exists. This will help them to go all out, perhaps, can do what they are supposed to do in the first instance. You can't be a midwife, a nurse without you know that you belong to a certain professional bodies. You know that bodies, you need to pay some certain dues, you need to do some certain things, and it's going to even help in terms of the quality of delivery members, because they know that there's no money coming from anywhere. It has to be from our members. So it will be an opportunity for them to go.
Efficient, you've talked about so much how this money will save a lot of things, resources from the government, but being realistic, I mean, what challenges? It's not necessarily so easy collecting all these levies. What challenges do you think that these professional bodies or councils will face due to this discontinuation of budgetary allocations?
One of the challenges, because this is a new terrain for them, because they are not used to it, they are used to, stretch forth their hands and receive a certain amount from the government. It's going to be, it's like it's a new terrain for them. And when you look at it, this policy will kick off December 26, December 21, 2026, which means they still have about 2 years from now to actually plan, to actually see what they can do, what they will be able to do, either to get more membership, to look for international partners, donors, to, brainstorm and look at what exactly they can do in order to generate incomes to finance their members. Because, I think the only budgets they will be carrying is possibly the salary of staff who works mainly at the head office. Most of the state branches of these associations, they are members of the associations who take this portfolio as more or less like, as a volunteer. So I think the only thing that I want to say, they are using the money, and okay, you might want to say institute like legal aid, where, sometimes they used to take some pro bono, cases where they have some lawyers who they paid some money to take some pro bono case. Perhaps you might want to say some institute of research, and of course, from our constituency, the Council of Press, the Press Council. You want to ask yourself that when all the money that the Press Council is collecting, you as a journalist, me as a journalist, what have we actually seen something? Have we actually benefited directly from all this money? So I think the challenges they are going to have is just for them, it's going to be a new terrain for them to go back to drawing board, look for what they can do to, strategies together to see how they can generate funds in order to run the professional bodies and for everybody to be fine. In the end, it's going to be a win-win situation for both parties.
Now, Efficient, do you think the government widely consulted some of these bodies before taking this decision? And what do you think influenced this decision? And what do we expect the government to do with this extra monies that it would have saved from these professional bodies and councils, from funding these bodies and councils?
Well, regarding whether they consult these professional bodies, I read a report about the Institute of Chartered Accountants. I think somewhere in the 80s, they personally reject these allocations from the federal government, saying at that, I think 88 or so, saying that they don't really need this allocation. So which means it's more or less like a sign to other professional bodies that it's a matter of one day this will come. But when and how it's going to come is what they don't know. Maybe it's more sooner than they expected. And other things from the part of the government needs to do what we call accountability and prudency. And it's not only to these professional bodies. As we speak now, there is a compulsory 1,000 naira transfer of ownership that all motorists across Nigeria will be paying. That is another way government is trying to see they can mop up cash to finance and to run the government. So all this idea is good. At the beginning, we don't have problem with it. Whether they consulted whites or they don't consult whites, we know that government need to raise cash. We need to raise funds to run policies to fund government projects locally, because we can't start talking about going abroad and be collecting loans. So it now depends on part of the government to be transparent with how they spend those funds. That will tell us whether this government is actually saying that if you tell us to sacrifice for you, can we trust you with the funds you are trying to work with?
And efficient, talking about this sacrifice that is coming from the government, it seems that it's falling back on the people. You're cutting budgetary allocations for professional bodies and councils, telling people to pay more. I mean, talk about the motorists and all of that. What about the cost of governance? I mean, for those elected, we've seen exactly for ministers, for those in the assembly, where exactly are they going to cut their own costs?
There you go again. That's a billion-dollar question. Don't forget that last week there was a rumor that the political office holders increased their allowances by 140%, but they retract from that statement saying that it's a ruse. But it still takes us further that I believe it's still early. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has not spent 6 months. He's still within, he's not even spent 3 months. I'm sure that a reasonable, it's become a reasonable thing at this point in time. And if the government, if they don't want to, at the end of the day, face backlash from Nigerians, these are the areas they need to look into. Of course, there have been some political analysts have already been complaining about the total amount of bulletproof cars that you see that convoys that the political office holder used. But I'm sure they are, but I think it's early, but I'm sure there's something in pipeline. It is compulsory and it's important. It can't be business as usual again.
Okay. No, I appreciate the last time you were on this program. The last time you were on this program was about a month ago, and you were very happy that the president took that tough decision to get rid of subsidy. It's been a month now, and we've not seen any palliative measures to cushion the adverse effects of this removal on ordinary Nigerians. Is it too early to call for palliative measures? And Nigerians are struggling. Ordinary Nigerians are struggling every day to get by with this new reality. So what should the government do at this point with the savings it's made from the subsidy removal?
But it's so sad that Nigeria is going through what we are going through now. But we don't prepare for these days, because you look at it, dishing out of palliative. Do we actually have a unified database that can categorize the degree of people, of Nigerians who actually need this palliative? I'm sure. If you're talking of palliative, I'm not sure you...
Not palliatives in the form of noodles or palliative. Not palliatives in the form of noodles or cash transfer. I mean, just like reducing the cost of public transport and what have you. Doesn't necessarily have to be handing cash to people.
That's what I'm saying, that if you want to, it's not something you can rush into, because you need to look at a unified system.
But they could rush into collecting money and reducing budgetary allocations. I mean, why can't they be fast enough on their own side?
Okay, let's look at transportation that you made example now. The easiest way is for you to address, to Lagosian that using BRT, that okay, we are going to give certain reductions as far as BRT is concerned. Of course, you can't be an average downforce on Lagos Road and say this is how much you have to charge. It's an open market. So that's why I said government need to. I'm sure the government will have a lot of headache.
In 10 seconds, what's a realistic timeline before we go? When should the government come up with these plans to help?
Well, I think the presidential spokesperson Dele Alake have told us that this administration is they are moving with the speed of light. So we expect that before the first quarter of this presidency.
Okay, we keep waiting. Thank you very much.
Probably December palliatives, maybe. Hopefully. Thank you so much for joining us on the conversation.
I'm sure the palliative doesn't include you guys because.
Efficient, why are you excluding us from these palliatives? I mean, we're Nigerians.
We're Nigerians.
We're Nigerians. Thank you so much, Efficient, for joining us on this conversation.
Thank you so much.